By the time Lena Hart reached my driveway, I had watched half the block look past her like she was part of the scenery. She had tried the food table first, carrying a glass bowl of peach salad with mint from her yard. Two women were arguing about where to put the potato chips and never answered when she asked if they needed help. Then she drifted toward the lawn chairs by the Hendersons' maple tree. Every seat was technically full, though two were holding handbags and one was holding nothing but a folded newspaper. Nobody moved it. Lena stood there for a moment, gave the small, polite smile I had seen from across our lawns for weeks, and turned away. Then she looked at me and walked straight across the street. Before I tell you what happened after that, if stories about ordinary people finding the courage to choose something better mean something to you, consider subscribing and staying with me to the end. My name is Noah Mercer. I was 30 years old that summer, a licensed electrician running a small 3-man residential service company in Raleigh, North Carolina. I lived in a narrow brick bungalow on Alder Street, in a neighborhood where people borrowed ladders, complained about leaf pickup, and somehow knew who had replaced a water heater before the truck had even left the curb. I had been single for a year and a half after a 6-year relationship ended quietly and permanently. There had been no betrayal, no screaming, no dramatic scene. We had simply reached the point where every conversation felt like a negotiation over a future neither of us wanted anymore. Since then, I had become good at work, good at fixing things, and very good at going home to an empty house without calling it lonely. Lena had moved into the small white cottage next door to mine in May. She was 26, worked as a freelance landscape designer, and had inherited the house from her grandmother. I knew those facts because I had helped reset a tripped breaker in her kitchen the first week she arrived. Beyond that, I knew she watered plants before sunrise, drove an old green Subaru, and spoke so softly that people leaned closer without realizing they were doing it. At the block party, she stopped at the edge of my driveway and lifted the empty paper plate in her hand. "Is this chair taken?" I looked at the blue folding chair beside me. Only by a mosquito with strong opinions. She glanced at the seat. "Did you ask it to move?" "I'm waiting for it to contribute to the neighborhood fund." Her mouth twitched. "Sounds fair." I swatted the air over the chair. "It has failed its obligations. You're safe." She sat but carefully, as if accepting the chair required proof she deserved it. Lena looked toward the food table. "Did you bring something?" I asked. "The peach salad, the one in the glass bowl." She nodded. "I had some." That got her attention. "You did?" "Twice. I was trying to identify whatever was in it besides mint. Basil. I knew it was something responsible adults grow on purpose." She laughed. And I realized I had never heard her do that. Not when I fixed her breaker, not when we exchanged mail that had been delivered to the wrong house, not during the small waves we gave each other over driveways in the morning. "I thought nobody liked it," she said. "The bowl is almost empty. They probably don't know I made it." "Why didn't you tell them?" She folded the edge of her plate between her fingers. They were already talking. It was such a simple answer that I almost missed what it meant. I looked across the street again. I had seen her try to join two conversations. I had seen Mrs. Daly turn her body inward while Lena stood at the edge of a circle. I had seen Denise Harper, our neighborhood association president, greet 3 people by name and then say, "Oh, hi," to Lena without pausing. I had noticed all of it. I just had not done anything about it. "Were you going home?" I asked. Lena looked at me. "Maybe. Because no one made space? That sounds pathetic when you say it out loud. It sounds rude when I say it out loud." Her gaze dropped to the plate again. "They all know each other," she said. "I'm new. Mrs. Daly moved here 8 months ago and already knows everyone's dental history. That might be a special talent. It's definitely something." She smiled again, but the smile faded quickly. I'm not good at entering conversations, she admitted. If there isn't a natural opening, I usually decide the opening wasn't meant for me. I thought about the empty folding chair beside the Henderson's tree, holding only a newspaper. Sometimes people are just bad at noticing when they've closed the circle. Lena gave me a look that said she was not sure whether I was excusing them or trying to comfort her. Before I could explain, Denise clapped her hands near the middle of the street and announced the neighborhood scavenger hunt. Half the adults groaned. The kids cheered. Denise held up stacks of printed clues. Teams of 4, no driving. And please do not climb fences this year. Lena reached for the strap of her purse. That sounds like my exit, she said. You can't leave. She paused. Why not? Because I'm terrible at scavenger hunts. That sounds like a reason for me to leave faster. I need someone with actual observation skills. You don't know if I have those. You noticed my porch light was wired backward before I did. You're an electrician. It was humbling. She shook her head, but she did not stand. I waved over my older neighbor, Mr. Alvarez, and his 14-year-old grandson, Mateo, who were arguing about whether the clue sheet counted a bird bath as a stone bowl. We formed a team. Lena turned out to be almost unfairly good at the game. She noticed a painted turtle hidden in the Hendersons' flower bed. She identified a magnolia leaf from 20 feet away. She remembered which house had a red bicycle leaning behind its shed. When one clue said, "Find the home where rain goes underground," the rest of us stared at each other until Lena led us to the new French drain behind the Daly's garage. How did you know that? Mateo asked. I notice yards, she said. That is an extremely suspicious sentence, I told her. For the first time that evening, she laughed, without lowering her voice afterward. We finished third. Mateo claimed the judging was corrupt. Mr. Alvarez accepted a plastic medal with the dignity of an Olympic champion. When the party began thinning out, Lena stayed in the blue chair. The sun had gone low enough to turn the upper windows gold. Someone had switched the music to something slower. On the curb, kids were crushing ice cubes under their shoes because they had run out of better ideas. I'm glad you came over, I said. Lena looked toward her house next door to mine, then back at me. I almost didn't. What changed your mind? She studied me for a second. You looked like you had actually seen what was happening. There was no accusation in her voice. That somehow made it land harder. I did see it, I said. I know. And I sat here for a while before doing anything. She shrugged gently. You moved the chair when I asked. I wanted to tell her that was a very low standard. Instead, I said, next time I'll try to be faster. Her expression changed, almost closing. I don't need anyone rescuing me, Noah. The words were quiet, but they were not uncertain. I nodded. Fair. Then I added, but I can still keep a chair open. That brought the smile back. Maybe, she said. I can work with that. The next morning, I found a terracotta pot on my front step. It contained a basil plant 3 inches tall, with a wooden marker pushed into the soil. For responsible adults, the marker said. I carried it next door. Lena was kneeling beside her front walk in gardening gloves, pulling crabgrass from between the bricks. She looked up when my shadow crossed the path. I believe this was abandoned on my property. She glanced at the plant. You said you couldn't identify basil. I identified it eventually, after being told. That is still a form of education. She sat back on her heels. Put it somewhere with morning sun. Water it when the top inch of soil is dry. I looked toward my porch. I'm going to need you to translate that into electricity. Fine. Don't drown it. Don't bake it. That I understand. I set the pot beside her and noticed 3 rolled drawings under the porch bench. Work? She nodded. A courtyard redesign for a retirement community in Cary. You do the drawings at home? Most of them. I left a firm downtown last year and started freelancing. Brave, desperate, she said. Brave sounds better on a website. I laughed. But she had already gone back to the weeds. That could have been the end of the conversation. Instead, I pointed toward my front yard where a patch of grass beneath the oak tree had been losing a slow battle with shade for 3 years. What would you do with that? Lena followed my hand. Stop trying to grow grass there. That feels judgmental. The grass agrees with me. What would you put there? She stood and walked to the edge of my yard. For the next 10 minutes, she talked more than I had heard her speak all summer. Hostas would survive, but deer might eat them. Ferns would work near the foundation if I fixed the downspout. A curved bed would look less like I had surrendered to the tree. She crouched, picked up a handful of soil, rubbed it between her fingers and frowned at it as if it had personally disappointed her. You know, I said, for someone who says she has trouble entering conversations, you're very comfortable insulting my dirt. Your dirt asked for professional feedback. That afternoon, we went to a garden center together. Not a date. I told myself that twice while Lena compared coral bells under the shade canopy, and once more when she held 2 pots against each other and asked which leaf color I liked better. I bought both. Over the next 3 weeks, my yard became an excuse neither of us admitted we were using. We traded small jobs between our houses, and most nights ended on one porch or the other after the work was done. That was where I learned the things Alder Street did not know about her. She had grown up in Durham but spent most weekends at her grandmother's house after her parents divorced. The white cottage had been the only place, she said, where nobody rushed her when she spoke. Her grandmother, Ruth, would wait through every pause as if silence were not something that needed fixing. She died 2 years ago, Lena told me one evening. The house sat empty while the estate was settled. I kept telling myself I would sell it. But you moved in. She looked down at the iced tea in her hands. I needed somewhere that felt like mine. I did not ask why. Not then. She learned things about me too. My father called every Sunday. I hated olives. And I had once wanted to become a firefighter. Our friendship grew through small, honest things that stayed where we put them. Then Alder Street gave us something bigger to argue about. At the far end of the neighborhood sat a narrow, vacant parcel everyone called the Triangle because 2 streets and a drainage easement squeezed it into an awkward shape. Years earlier, there had been a rental house there. After a fire, the city demolished it and eventually transferred the land to the neighborhood association for $1, with the condition that it remain community space. For years, community space had meant weeds, 2 broken benches, and a trash can. Nobody wanted to empty. Denise Harper had spent the previous winter campaigning to turn the Triangle into a paved gathering area with a prefabricated gazebo. She liked phrases such as property values and usable amenity. Her plan had one serious problem. It was expensive. Then the city announced a matching grant for neighborhood projects that reduced heat and stormwater runoff. At the next association meeting, Denise stood in the fellowship hall of St. Mark's Church with a poster board showing a white gazebo surrounded by concrete pavers. This grant can cover almost half the cost, she announced. Lena, sitting beside me in the 3rd row, leaned close. No, it can't. I turned. Why? The program prioritizes tree canopy, permeable surfaces, native planting, and runoff reduction. That design adds hard surface. Surface? You read the grant? Yesterday, of course you did. At the front, Denise asked for comments. Lena's hand rose halfway. A man behind us called out first, "Can we add grills?" Someone else asked about security lights. Then Mrs. Daly wanted to know, Who would clean the gazebo after teenagers used it? Lena lowered her hand. I saw it happen. This time I did not speak for her. I leaned over and whispered, "You had something." She looked at me. "You can still say it." Her fingers tightened around the folded grant summary in her lap. Denise was already moving to the next agenda item. Lena stood. "Actually," she said. The room did not become magically quiet. A chair scraped. Someone coughed. Denise looked mildly surprised. Lena took one breath. The grant would score better if the site absorbed water instead of shedding it. There's a low point along the south edge. You could use that as a rain garden, plant 2 shade trees on the west side, and keep the center open with compacted gravel instead of pavers. It would cost less than the gazebo plan and qualify under more categories. Denise blinked. "And you know this because?" "I design landscapes." "Oh." Denise smiled. "Well, that's interesting. Maybe send us some thoughts?" Then she turned back to the agenda. Lena sat down. I waited until the meeting ended before saying anything. "She dismissed you. She asked me to send ideas. She said it the way people say they'll look at a restaurant menu online." Lena gave me a tired smile. "You're learning neighborhood politics." "Are you going to send them?" She unfolded the grant summary. "Yes," she said. But not because Denise asked nicely. Lena sent a 6-page concept package 2 days later. It was not a sketch on a napkin. It included a planning plan, drainage arrows, cost estimates, maintenance notes, an accessible crushed stone path, 3 shade trees, low voltage lighting, and a long wooden table under a simple open pergola instead of the expensive gazebo. Denise replied to the neighborhood email list with one sentence. "Thanks, Lena. We'll add this to the ideas being considered." I read the message twice and felt irritation rise behind my eyes. Lena, who was sitting on my porch step with a box of screws while I repaired a railing, saw my face. "My face? Don't!" she said. I didn't say anything. "You were about to." I was about to say her response was insulting. It was predictable. That doesn't make it less insulting. She handed me another screw. "If you send Denise an angry email, I will deny knowing you." I wasn't going to send an angry email. "You have the expression of a man composing one. I was thinking about punctuation." "Exactly." I laughed despite myself. The following Saturday, the association held a walkthrough at the Triangle. About 20 people showed up. Denise had taped the gazebo rendering to one broken bench. Lena's plan sat on the other, held down by 2 rocks. Most people gathered around the gazebo first because it looked familiar. Then Mrs. Alvarez arrived with her cane. She was 72, lived across from me with her husband, and had undergone knee replacement surgery the previous winter. She looked at Denise's rendering and tapped one corner with her finger. "Where's the path?" Denise pointed. "Here, from the sidewalk. That is 3 steps. We can probably add a ramp." "Probably." Mrs. Alvarez moved to Lena's plan. "This one has no steps." Lena, standing several feet away, came closer. "The grade is gentler from the east entrance. If the path curves, it can stay within an accessible slope without needing railings." Mrs. Alvarez looked at her. "And I can get to the table?" "Yes." "What about my husband when he gets stubborn and brings that ridiculous walker?" Mr. Alvarez protested from behind her. "I do not get stubborn. You got stuck beside the mailbox Tuesday." "That was uneven concrete." Lena smiled. "The path is wide enough for the walker." For the next 20 minutes, people began asking her questions. Could there still be room for kids to play? Yes. Would the rain garden attract mosquitoes? Not if it drained within 24 hours. Could the pergola have outlets for neighborhood events? Yes, if an electrician designed the circuit. Everyone looked at me. I lifted both hands. "I know a guy." Lena laughed. The mood shifted. Not dramatically, not all at once. But people began seeing the triangle as something other than Denise's poster board. When the group dispersed, Lena stayed behind to measure the south edge of the property. I helped her stretch a tape from the curb to an old pecan tree. "You didn't need me today," I said. She wrote a number on her pad. "I needed someone to hold the tape. I feel valued." "You should." A bad measurement can ruin an afternoon. I held the tape while she crouched near the storm inlet. Her hair had come loose from the clip at the back of her head. A strand kept falling across her cheek. She pushed it away impatiently. "You're staring," she said without looking up. "I'm waiting for instructions." "You've been waiting for instructions for 15 seconds?" "I'm unusually patient." She finally looked at me. For a second, neither of us smiled. The air changed in a way that had nothing to do with heat. I was suddenly aware of how close we were, how quiet the street had become, and how easily I could imagine reaching out to move that strand of hair away for her. I did not. Lena looked down first. 36 feet 8 inches, she said. I glanced at the tape. 36 feet 6. She looked again and laughed under her breath. Good thing I brought the electrician. That evening she came over with takeout from a Thai restaurant and 2 cold beers. We ate on my back steps while thunder rolled somewhere far west of the city. I asked her why she had left the design firm. She was quiet long enough that I thought she would change the subject. Instead, she set her bottle on the step. My fiancé worked there. I had not known she had been engaged. He was a senior project manager, she continued, older than me, very confident, very good, in rooms full of people. What happened at first? Nothing I recognized as a problem. She rubbed her thumb over the edge of the bottle label. He would finish my sentences because he said he knew what I meant. In client meetings, if I paused, he would jump in. If someone questioned a design, he would answer before I could. He called it helping. I did not move. Lena looked toward the darkening yard. Then he started presenting my concepts when I wasn't in the room. He always gave me credit later, privately. He said I hated presentations anyway, so it made sense. I felt something cold settle under my ribs. "What made you leave?" "One of my courtyard designs won a regional award. That sounds like a reason to stay. The award had his name on it." I said nothing. He told me it was better for both of us because clients trusted him. I realized I'd spent 3 years letting someone translate me until people forgot I had a voice of my own. The thunder was closer now. "And the engagement?" I asked. I ended it the same week. Did he understand why? He said I was throwing away a good life over pride. Lena gave a short laugh with no humor in it. After that, I moved here. I thought if I worked alone and lived alone for a while, I would figure out what part of me was actually mine. I looked down at my hands. The first night of the block party came back to me. My instinct to notice her, then protect her. The way I had already felt proud when other people listened to her at the Triangle, as if their attention were somehow mine to win for her. "I need to tell you something," I said. She turned toward me. "I like helping you." That sounds dangerous already. It might be, because sometimes I think I'm helping when what I really mean is I want to make everything easier for you. Lena waited, and that can become another way of deciding you can't handle something yourself. Her expression softened. "You're not him, Noah." "I know. But I don't want to borrow his habits just because my intentions are better." For a long moment, she said nothing. Then she reached over and took my hand. Not romantically. At least that was what I told myself. She squeezed once. "Then ask before you fix things," she said. I looked at our hands. "Electricians hate that rule. I'm serious. So am I." She let go slowly. The first drops of rain struck the porch roof. We carried the food inside, and for the rest of the evening we talked about safer subjects. But something between us had changed. Not because she had told me about her ex, because she had trusted me enough to tell me where the line was, and I had decided I wanted to be the kind of man who could stand beside that line without crossing it. A week later, Denise sent both triangle concepts to the neighborhood for an online vote. She called the gazebo option Traditional Gathering Pavilion. Lena's became Alternative Garden Concept. I stared at those labels and almost violated the ask before you fix things rule within 30 seconds. Instead, I walked next door. Lena was at her dining table working on a planning schedule. "Do you want me to say something about the survey wording?" I asked. She looked up surprised. "You're asking. I am evolving, slowly, painfully." She read the survey on my phone. "No," she said. "Leave it. You sure?" "Yes." If my idea only survives when you correct every unfair advantage, then I still don't know whether people actually want it. I hated the logic because it was good logic, so I left it alone. Then a photograph appeared in the Alder Street Facebook group. Someone had taken it from across the road the evening Lena and I measured the triangle. In the picture, we were standing close together over her notebook, both smiling at something I could not remember. The caption read, "Guess we know why the alternative plan is getting so much special attention." No name was attached. The account was one of those neighborhood profiles with no photo and almost no history. The comments multiplied anyway. A few people joked about a neighborhood romance. Then the comments turned to my role on the maintenance committee and whether our friendship had influenced the project. I felt my face get hot. My first impulse was to answer every comment. My second was to call Denise. My third was to walk next door. I chose the third. Lena opened the door before I knocked. She was holding her phone. "You saw it," I said. "Yes. Tell me what you want me to do." She closed her eyes briefly. "I don't know." "That's okay." "No, it isn't." She stepped onto the porch. "This is exactly what I didn't want. We haven't done anything wrong." "That doesn't matter. It should." "But it doesn't." Her voice cracked on the last word, and she looked away. I waited. She took a breath. "Do you know what people at my old firm said when I left?" I shook my head. "They said I had only advanced because I was engaged to a project manager. The same man who took my work into rooms without me became the reason people thought the work was never mine. I understood then why a stupid neighborhood post could hurt more than it looked like it should." "I'm sorry," I said. She pressed her lips together. "I think I should withdraw the plan." "No." The word came out too fast. Lena's eyes lifted. I stopped myself. "Do you want my opinion?" I asked. A long pause. "Yes. I think withdrawing teaches the person who posted that picture exactly how to remove you from something, but it is your plan, your name, your choice." She looked at the street. "I need a few days." "Okay. And I think we should stop working on it together for now." That hurt even though I knew why she was asking. "Okay." She looked back at me, perhaps waiting for disappointment to turn into persuasion. I gave her none. For the next 10 days, our houses went back to being two houses. We waved. We spoke when necessary. My basil plant nearly died because I overwatered it, and I refused to use that as an excuse to knock on her door. The garden vote was suspended. Denise announced that because of concerns about process, the association would hold a formal public meeting before submitting any grant application. Then the city's grant coordinator emailed the association with a problem nobody had expected. The triangle sat directly above an old stormwater route that was not shown correctly on the neighborhood's public map. Any proposal would need a drainage calculation and a plan for overflow during heavy rain. Denise's gazebo concept suddenly became more expensive. Pavers would require underground storage and additional engineering. Lena's rain garden concept had been built around the existing low point from the beginning. Denise called me first. "Can you ask Lena to come to the meeting?" "No." There was silence on the line. "No? You can ask her. She listens to you." That's not the same thing. Denise sighed. Noah, we need her information. Then tell her that. And if you want her expertise, ask for it like expertise? I hung up before I could turn the sentence into a lecture. 20 minutes later, I saw Denise cross the street and knock on Lena's door. I went inside my house. I did not watch. The public meeting was held the following Thursday in the same church hall. Every folding chair was occupied. The anonymous Facebook post had done what drainage reports and grant money could not. Made everyone interested. I sat in the fourth row beside Mr. Alvarez. Lena came in alone carrying a slim black portfolio. She did not look for me. She took a seat near the aisle. Denise opened the meeting with an awkward explanation of the grant requirements and then said, Lena has agreed to explain the site conditions. Lena stood. Someone near the back whispered something I could not hear. She heard it. Her shoulders tightened. For one terrible second, I thought she might sit down. Then she placed her portfolio on the table, opened it, and turned the first drawing toward the room. The triangle is not a flat lot, she said. That is the first thing we need to stop pretending. She spoke for nearly 15 minutes. Not quickly, not loudly, but clearly. She showed where water moved during storms, where the soil stayed saturated, and why a hard surface would push runoff toward the Alvarez property. She explained that the rain garden was not decorative landscaping, but a working basin designed to slow water, filter it, and release it into the existing system. She showed how the path could remain accessible, how the pergola could be built in phases, and how native plants would reduce maintenance after the first year. Nobody interrupted. Then a man from Oak Lane raised his hand. Did Noah help prepare this? The room shifted. Lena looked at him. No. He nodded toward me. He's on the maintenance committee, I know. So he had no input. Lena could have looked at me. She did not. He gave me an estimate for 2 outdoor circuits when I asked what safe event power would cost. That number is listed on page 5 and labeled with his company name. Every other part of the plan is mine. Another hand rose. What about the picture online? Denise started to speak, but Lena lifted one hand. I'll answer. She looked around the room. Noah and I became friends after the block party. I care about him. That is personal. And it has nothing to do with whether water runs downhill. A few people laughed softly. Lena did not. I almost withdrew this plan because I was afraid that if people connected me to him, they would stop seeing my work. I have made that mistake before. I have let other people decide that being quiet means being uncertain, or that needing time to speak means needing someone else to speak for me. She paused. The silence in the room was complete now. I'm not asking anyone to choose this plan because of Noah. I'm asking you to choose it if the facts make sense. If they don't, vote against it. But please judge the work that is in front of you, not a photograph somebody posted, because gossip is easier than reading 6 pages. Mr. Alvarez said, That seems reasonable. His wife elbowed him. Of course it seems reasonable. The room laughed again, and this time Lena smiled. Questions continued for almost 40 minutes. I answered exactly 2. One was about the cost of weatherproof outlets. The other was about whether the existing streetlight circuit could support them. For everything else, I kept my mouth shut. Not because Lena needed silence from me, because she had the floor. At the end of the meeting, the association voted by paper ballot. Lena's plan won 38-11. Denise stood at the front holding the final count. She looked disappointed for half a second, then folded the paper and faced Lena. I owe you an apology, she said. Lena blinked. I should have taken your first submission more seriously. I didn't. The apology was not perfect. It was public, though, and that mattered. Lena nodded. Thank you. Afterward, people surrounded her with questions. Mrs. Alvarez wanted to know whether the path could include a bench halfway around. Mateo wanted a place to lock bicycles. A retired teacher offered to coordinate volunteers. Someone from the next street asked Lena for her business card because his church needed help redesigning a courtyard that flooded every spring. I stood near the back of the room and watched her handle all of it herself. She did not disappear inside the crowd. She also did not become a different person. She still paused before answering. She still spoke softly. People simply waited now because she had taught them that waiting was worth it. I left before she did. That was intentional. For 10 days, she had asked for distance. One successful meeting did not automatically erase that request. I was halfway across my front lawn when I heard footsteps behind me. Noah. I turned. Lena was crossing the street toward me. For one strange second, I saw the block party again. The empty plate, the guarded smile, the woman who had looked for one place where she would not have to fight to exist. This time she was carrying no plate and looking at no one else. She stopped a few feet away. You left. I thought you might want to enjoy being mobbed by people asking about drainage. I escaped. Congratulations. She looked down, then back up. I was angry with you. I know. Not because you did something wrong. I know that too. I hated that the picture made me question whether any of this was mine. I nodded. And I hated that part of me wanted you to fix it. You were allowed to want that, but you didn't. You asked me not to. Her eyes softened. That may be the most attractive thing you've ever done. I stared at her. More attractive than rewiring your porch? Significantly. That is devastating to my profession. She laughed. Then the laughter faded, but the warmth stayed. I care about you too, she said. The words were simple. They landed harder than anything dramatic could have. I was hoping that might still be true. It is. I took one step closer, then stopped. May I kiss you? Lena's smile appeared slowly. You're asking before fixing things. I'm committed to the system. Yes, she said. So I kissed her under the yellow light of my porch, with a half-dead basil plant on the railing and a stack of grant papers still visible through her front window. It was not a movie kiss. A car passed at the end of the street. Somebody's dog barked twice. I bumped my elbow against the porch post. It was better because it was ours. The triangle took 4 months to build. Lena donated the concept and worked with a city landscape architect on the final drawings, while the church courtyard lead became a paid job and brought her more referrals. I kept my own company out of the triangle contract so there would be no question about money benefiting me. Lena and I started dating slowly. We did not hide, but we did not perform the relationship for the neighborhood either. Some evenings we ate on her porch. Some evenings we worked late in separate houses and texted each other complaints about clients. We argued once about whether my basil plant was salvageable. It was not. She made me throw it away myself. What changed most was not Lena's volume. She never became the loudest person on Alder Street. She became harder to overlook. The next summer, the neighborhood moved the block party to the finished triangle. The young trees were still small, but they threw enough shade for 3 picnic tables. The rain garden was thick with black-eyed Susans and switchgrass. Mrs. Alvarez sat on the bench she had requested. Mateo had painted a small sign near the bicycle rack. Someone strung lights beneath the pergola, and for once I was not the person responsible for them. Lena arrived beside me carrying a glass bowl of peach salad with mint and basil. This time people knew who had made it. Denise asked Lena to explain the plants to a couple who had just moved onto Oak Lane. Mr. Alvarez called her over to settle an argument about whether one of the shrubs was supposed to be that large. 3 children asked if they could pick flowers. She answered every question in the same calm voice she had always had. Later, after sunset, I found her sitting alone at the end of the long wooden table. You okay? I asked. She nodded, just listening. To what? She looked around at the party. People using the place. I sat beside her. Across the path, a new woman from the corner house stood by herself, holding a cup, watching two conversations she had not yet joined. I noticed her. Lena noticed her first. She squeezed my hand, stood, and walked over. Not because the woman looked helpless. Not because Lena had become responsible for every quiet person in the world. She simply introduced herself, asked the woman's name, and stayed long enough for the circle to open naturally. When Lena came back, she sat beside me and rested her shoulder against mine. You kept the chair, she said. I looked at the empty space beside us. No, I said. You learned you never needed permission to sit down. She considered that, then shook her head. Not exactly. What did I miss? Sometimes people still need someone to notice. I thought about the first block party, about how close she had come to going home, and about all the ways people confuse quietness with absence. Then I looked at the triangle, at the trees she had placed exactly where the evening sun now softened behind them, at the neighbors talking under a structure that existed because she had finally decided her idea deserved to remain in the room. You're right, I said. Lena smiled and took my hand under the table. A year earlier, she had crossed the street because I was the one person who seemed to see her. Now she was surrounded by people who knew her name, trusted her work, and waited when she paused. But the part I loved most was simpler than that. She no longer mistook being quiet for being small, and I no longer mistook love for stepping in front of someone. Sometimes love was asking. Sometimes it was listening. Sometimes it was holding the tape measure exactly where you were told and trusting the other person to draw the plan. If this story stayed with you, tell me in the comments. Have you ever been the person standing outside the circle? Or the person who finally noticed someone there? And if you enjoy stories about second chances, quiet courage, and relationships built on respect, subscribe and join me for the next one.